Hello and welcome to the Stacking Dingers Show. I am your host, Matthew, aka Sheep, aka Dark Sheep. We are Stacking Dingers, your home for everything Underdog, Major League Baseball. Check us out at stackingdingers.com to subscribe to our Substack to get this show and any of other work right into your inbox. Tonight, I am joined by Brendan at Too Much Tuma on Twitter. You can find his personal Substack at brendantuma@substack.com. You can find his news write-ups on as head of MLB info at Underdog, as well as some articles on Baseball America now. And also joining me tonight is Nez at Nez Takes on Twitter. You can find him streaming all the sports on Badge Bros on YouTube. Not the Badge Bros, just Badge Bros is the channel, which I think I've gotten wrong every time I've done this. But yeah, and he's working on some stuff at neztakes.com that he'll be helping out with some daily MLB stuff there. And I guess I skipped myself. You can check out my streaming drafts on YouTube at The Sheep Seats, and that's every Friday night. So tonight, guys, we are leading off part two of the pitcher rundown. Brendan and Chris and I got to Nick Pfaadt, and now we're going to dive deep. But probably, this is one of the questions that people have a lot. Who are these late round pitchers that we actually want?
Yeah, I would say, first and foremost, that I was thinking about this. If Underdog ADP was perfectly efficient or closer to what it is now, I don't think the idea of a late round pitcher would exist. It shouldn't, because there's just so few of them that this is what we talked about last offseason is there is so few of them that can separate on a season long basis. And if you're one of these younger guys who's just all the time going 4 2/3, 5 1/3, maybe you get some wins here and there, but it just makes it so much tougher. You're not getting the quality start points. You're losing out on strikeouts. There's just not enough ways to score. But I think that what ADP has shown us this offseason is there's a few special cases late where I think that some pitchers are mispriced, and it is, really just a player take at that point. And, we do sometimes get in trouble with overvaluing our player take abilities, but these are bets that I'm willing to make, and the guys that I'll highlight later as we get through the list are ones that I've targeted over and over. And it's one of those things where if you're right about them, it's going to be a great season, and if you're wrong, then it won't be as. But it's a late round pick, so it shouldn't kill you that much unless you're, for some reason really reliant on them.
Yeah, well said. I definitely am the type of person that tries to shore up my staff before rounds 18 or so, but at round 18 and on, there are definitely some guys that I do end up taking. And, I am quick to get rose-colored glasses for some of these young pitchers. I think I overrate my ability to evaluate pitching, but it is, I think, just the most fun position to just dream about and draft. And probably because they only throw every 5.5 days. So, if you're wrong, but sometimes you're right. And when you are right, you're right in a big way. So I'm excited to talk about some of these guys. I'm glad that I'm here for part two. There's some fun names back here. We can definitely elaborate.
Do you find yourself, Nez, picking the same guys often, or are you more, I think, spreading it out?
I am pretty concentrated, but I definitely am not taking Paul Skenes every single time. I will here and there because I'm playing for 100K for the dinger. But I do spread out in that range, but it's definitely spread out amongst a small pool of pitchers that we'll get to. I have my favorites, and it'll be very obvious who they are. I mean, I won't hold it. I'll when we get to these guys, I'll let you know who I take a lot. But I spread it out, but quite a bit of these guys though at the same time.
Yeah, I'm basically the same. I have a few that and they're like get to the top of my exposures list overall, all pitchers, just because I take them often. But I do mix in guys, even some guys I don't like, just because this is such a random range, and a lot of it comes down to opportunity in their rotation too, which is not necessarily predictable.
For sure.
All right, so let's get to the list. Here we are. Again, we are using Chris's The Sheet trademarked, fake trademark. As you can see, we have all the names. We left this sorted on the order that we had last time we ended off. So we ended off with Nick Pfaadt. And so you can maybe see some changes about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks, when we recorded episode 1 of the pitcher preview. You can see maybe some slight changes in order. And then if you haven't seen this at all before, we do have a mix of BAT and ATC projections built into this. So you'll see the rank for the two systems. And then over here on the right, you see a little more detail in terms of how many games they're projected to start, innings. And that's where some of this becomes almost maybe some of the key stuff, more so than the actual rate stats. But those are here. The total points over the season and the points per plate appearance for both systems. So yeah, we ended with Nick Pfaadt. Next up, Tristan McKenzie. The question Tristan McKenzie always has is, how will his slight frame hold up?
Brennan, I'll let you start off with this, because for me it's like it's a whole different angle, I think, when it comes to actually drafting some of these teams.
For sure. So I think McKenzie is actually, not to start it off this way, but he's a little bit boring in the sense of I don't think we can really, question the skills. I think over the past couple of years, we've gotten an idea of who Tristan McKenzie is. And if you could guarantee his 180 innings, he's shown the ability to go deep in his starts. He's on the Guardian, so there's going to be enough wins there for you. He can have, some spike potential in terms of strikeouts in a single game. And it's really just health. And is he going to be healthy, not just over the course of the season, but when you need him most, sort of thing. Because of that, when I'm hunting late for starting pitchers, I'm kind of looking for something a little safer. So I personally haven't been clicking him too much, but it's just a health thing. I have no reason not to otherwise.
For sure. Yeah, I'm pretty worried about the health. I'm definitely spooked coming off this type of injury, but like you said, he has the ability to go deep into starts. But for me right now, where he's at, I typically am waiting to take my next pitcher in my rotation in drafts, and I'll opt for a bat where he typically goes. So I have 6% Tristan McKenzie. So when he falls, I take him. But otherwise, yeah, I'm not really going for his type at this range. There's some guys below him that I like their ceilings more, and with less injury concerns.
So next up, also maybe not so much injury concerns, but just age concerns, and how much the skills seem to hold up when he's in there. Last season, you can see he projects. He's one of the few people left as we get through here that has a red points per plate appearance. Charlie Morton is on next up. I think I'm pretty much the same. Charlie Morton and Tristan McKenzie. I take them when they fall as a final pitcher, if it just occasionally. I'm not too hit big on either of them. I do think, Charlie Morton's shown just consistency that it's really a question of age.
Yeah, it's kind of impressive for me because he's 40 years old, going into his age 40 season, but didn't lose anything on his fastball from age 38 season to age 39 season being 2023, which is really impressive, man. And his calling card isn't necessarily the fastball, but it helps when you throw like league average fastball. It's the breaking stuff. And for me, my common sense tells me that, breaking stuff's going to age pretty well. And that's really like what he does well. And he's on a really good team. They're not going to restrict his innings too much, I would think. I mean, as long as he's healthy and out there, he's going to throw. So when him and if I do need a pitcher and Charlie Morton and McKenzie are back to back like that, I opt for Charlie Morton. I think that there's a big time age bias here, but he hasn't shown that it's warranted other than just the inherent risk of injury.
Yeah, the thing that I talked a lot about episode 1 was just making sure not to undervalue wins and quality starts. And obviously Charlie Morton's no one's in a better situation for wins than he is. And like you said, like sometimes when you're not sometimes, but like often when you're an older pitcher, your team is just going to let you go. So if Charlie Morton's feeling it one night, he's going to go 6-7 innings. And, it's not like the K rate's disastrous or anything, even despite his age. So yeah, I mean, like if you can easily tell, I mean, it's probably true for a lot of players, but like Charlie Morton, you can easily spin a story where he has a 2-start week late in the season. The Braves are rolling and he's racking up points for you. It's not hard to envision that.
So next then is Bailey Ober. I'll stick with you, Brendan. Where does he end up in the rotation for Minnesota, and does he have the skills to stick there?
I was gonna say, so like I'm glad you called on me for Bailey Ober here because he is someone I'm becoming a big fan of, and I'm a little late to the party in terms of being, getting on the board for the fan club sort of thing. But one stat I've been looking at a lot this offseason is whip, and it's just like so funny. Like at least in Roto, there's 5 pitching categories, and everyone hyper focuses on ERA, and not as many people look at whip. And I think it's honestly stems from how into George Kirby I've been this offseason and just staring at that walk rate and how strong of a skill set I think that is, especially in this day and age, because by not walking hitters, you're going to have the opportunity to stay in the game longer, which is, that's going to correlate to like wins and quality starts and everything. And a lot of these low walk guys, have several pitches, so they can turn over a lineup multiple times. And is by a lot of metrics, Bailey Ober doesn't pop, but he just doesn't allow free passes. And I think this price is incredibly reasonable for what he did last year and for what he's projected to do in 2024.
He's really interesting because, like you said, he doesn't pop. You look at like his pitch distribution, and he doesn't throw hard, 91-mile-an-hour fastball, but he throws it 50% of the time. And he has that changeup too that he's throwing 30% of the time, and then the 25% of the time it's slider curve. But with that, he gets his chase rate is impressive for guys that face him. In a decent, whiff percentage too. So he's interesting. I've been hearing a lot of buzz on Ober, and I haven't gotten there yet, but slowly but surely trying to correct that. I mean, I want to just draft everybody whenever I talk with you guys. Like, oh man, everybody sounds fun, but Ober is definitely one that that like I'm missing out on big time right now, and I need to correct that.
Someone that will be missed by his team for a little bit is Walker Buehler. He's next on the list, even though as of now his ADP is quite lower as news has sort of come out, or people are realizing that he's going to miss a certain portion of the early part of the season. I think the latest I saw was maybe May. Brendan, as the news hound, do you know the latest on what the plan is for Buehler?
It's definitely not the start of the season, and just based on his past injury history and knowing what the Dodgers are going to cap him at, the Dodgers do not care at all about Walker Buehler's 2024 regular season stats. They want him healthy in the playoffs. So I think sometimes like there was a while, like back in like 10 years ago with baseball, like Matt Harvey had this like big season long innings limit, and the Mets were going to make the playoffs, and there was all this drama. Are they going to push him past the innings limit? And I think like that type of thinking has us so concerned when we talk about the stuff for fantasy as on the innings limit, but like equally damaging, possibly even more so especially for underdog scoring, is a per start limit. That's why I get really nervous about some of the young guys, because the Dodgers, like we just talked about Charlie Morton, like Charlie Morton's arm's going to fall off at some point, but the Braves are going to be fine with it because he's 40 years old, and that's just what they're going to do. The Dodgers are not going to do that with Walker Buehler, so he's going to have so few chances to go 6 full innings, and yeah, that just makes him a really tough click. I would, based on this news, his ADP is probably going to fall more, so I would let him fall more. And if I took him at all, I wanted at the best possible price a week before opening day.
Yeah, well said. I am not catching the falling knife. I mean, I back in the day loved Walker Buehler. Like, was my highest drafted players in like 2021 best ball season. Couldn't tell me anything about Walker Buehler. It's kind of sad, but I'd love to see a resurgence from him. But I won't be a part of that if it takes place this season.
It's funny because as someone who has always thought everybody is way too high on Walker Buehler, I am trying to catch the falling knife this year. Just because I think he, he can succeed. It might be like 5 starts. I don't know. Maybe that's all I get out of him, or I don't know. But for me at this point in the draft, it's like he's at 187, but it's sort of usually in my roster construction. It's like, am I taking an infielder here and then taking one of these other pitchers that we talk about that goes in round 20, or can I take Walker Buehler here and take infielder that round 20? Like, how much of that projection is actually different between those two things, I guess, is my consideration.
I think this is where like the admin drafts I've done just have fallen into the same late round pitchers over and over because the order is just wrong. Like, I don't even know the number, like 10 pitchers I would take straight up before Walker Buehler, possibly more, and like 5 of them I'm like strongly convinced that are better picks than Walker Buehler. So yeah, it makes it tough when you're getting this late.
So rest in peace, Chris, but we're going to talk about his guy next. He didn't die. He's fine. He's just busy. Brandon Pfaadt. We saw a lot of innings. I forgot to pull up the graphic. But we saw he topped the list of second-year guys that got innings last year between the minors, majors, playoffs. So his balloon is inflated. It's just there's some bad air in there. At the most of the season was filled with like rotten egg air.
Yeah, I mean, Brendan, I'll kind of let you take Pfaadt here. I draft Brandon Pfaadt, but like I am definitely worried about whenever I look at his Fangraphs page and I see the sample that we have, and it's obviously not very pretty.
Yeah, I like Pfaadt. To me, he's more of a bet on like a full season breakout than, just trying to make sure Charlie Morton's going to be like going deep into games for you. Like, Pfaadt is someone who is young and talented, and heading into last year, he probably got a little bit oversteamed, and then people got like way too low on him when he was struggling. But then he had this incredible postseason, and I thought people were going to get way too high on him. But this price is reasonable. It's a good time to take a shot at him. I think his thing is, struggling with lefties. Lance Bresdowski did a YouTube video. He does some really good pitching videos, and he had one about the sinker and how sinker's making a bit of a comeback, and especially for right on right, left on left. And Pfaadt is one of the young pitchers who last season in the middle of the season added a sinker, and that's good. That helped him survive, but a sinker is not going to make you amazing or anything. So yeah, I like him. The Diamondbacks a pretty neutral situation, I would say, in terms of just as an environment, supporting cast and all that. So yeah, we'll let Chris be the one to at some point go on and on about Brandon Pfaadt.
Yeah, I'm definitely in on him. I sort of made it seem negative to begin with, but I'm definitely way in on him myself. We did see like a demonstrable physical change in his delivery, specifically where he was throwing off the rubber that like corresponded with also the change in success toward the end of the season. So it's not like, normally we want to see the season as a whole. We don't want, but when we see something like that, we can, it's not just like a narrative that we're telling ourselves, like there's an actual physical change that changed the results. I think that's something to pay attention to. I'm actually going to throw 3 guys together here. We have Reed Detmers, scroll down a little bit, Griffin Canning, and Patrick Sandoval, the big 3 in Los Angeles. So I'll leave that open to anybody that has any good or bad takes on any of these LA guys.
I liked Detmers coming out of the draft, but so far in his career, he kind of struggled with a little bit of inflated whip, some walk issues there. But the uptick in his K9 last year definitely like had me intrigued, especially since the year before that, 3.77 ERA for Reed. So I'm not completely writing him off, but these Angels guys, like I respect and I think that they're fine in like the back of a rotation for a best ball team, but I just don't really take these guys.
We talked last episode about how I had to take my vegetables with Christian Javier and Hunter Green, and Detmers finishes off that trifecta for me of guys who I was big on last year that didn't work out. And Detmers, I mean, the Angels, like we still kind of, we don't really view them yet as one of the worst teams in baseball, but I kind of think that bottoming out potential is there. Like wins are going to be hard to come by. I think he's the type of pitcher who is going to stick around in a big league rotation and is going to be someone we're drafting in fantasy for the next like 5 to 8 years sort of thing. But I maybe there's not that next level. But yeah, he just feels very vanilla. And then the only other thing I want to say about Patrick Sandoval is, I got to look this up later to confirm, but I think he has like either the record or close to the record for most swings and misses in a game in like the StatCast era. It happened a couple of years ago. I don't think it's the record, but it's one of like the top 3 or something.
Wow.
Okay. I feel like within some of the community, I've seen a lot of Griffin Canning love, and I just don't know where it's coming from.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to say about Griffin.
Okay.
I'd rather use the time on some other pitchers. It's a bad team. It's I don't know.
Fair enough. All right.
This is like I'm just gonna let you handle that.
No, I don't. I'm good. I'm good on this.
Let's see. Next up, we have Nathan Eovaldi, playoff hero. I'm just concerned with the not necessarily health, but like how he held up last year. Like we saw success in the playoffs, but we saw him come back from an injury that like his velocity was just down the rest of the year. And like I don't know that he's pitched yet this spring. I haven't seen anything about it, but I do have concerns. It's interesting because both him and Pfaadt I thought would have a little more shine on them from the playoffs and people having that perspective, but I don't know. ATC seems to like him fine.
I like Eovaldi. I think he is what he is, but one of the things that he benefits from is playing on one of the best offenses in baseball. Nothing about his like peripherals really scream that like he was getting lucky or anything like that. I think the biggest concerns were like you pointed out was and I can't remember exactly what that injury was, but it was a little shocking that he even like came back and threw. From what I remember, it was a forearm or an elbow, I thought.
Nathan Eovaldi makes me believe in the clutch gene because when he's really an incredible postseason pitcher. And like you said, the injury he came back from, like for some reason, when it's playoffs time, like he never feels 100% or he's not stretched out. He had that game for the Red Sox in the 2018 World Series. Like he wasn't stretched out and he went like 6 innings in relief. So, yeah, I do think there's a lot of skepticism that he can do it over the course of a full year, and I'd probably bet against that. He almost like it's like I might be overthinking this, but he's almost like a good eliminator pick because he'll be amazing for you early, and that'll help you get kind of far. And then if he does tail off in the second half, hopefully you have some other guys to step up.
All right. Next up, Braxton Garrett. I think he's starting to throw again. He did have some general soreness, general fatigue, whatever, coming into spring. I'm not too concerned. I'm fine still taking him. He's not going to get a lot of strikeouts or anything like that, but I think we saw him just be sort of a crafty pitcher last year and really figure out how to pitch. So I'm happy taking him, but I'm not too excited about it.
Yeah, I don't really have a whole lot to say about Braxton Garrett other than like I just remember him having like some really good starts. And sneaky like 30 games started too for him. I mean he feels like a pretty good pick. I mean I'm not like rushing to the podium for him like I am some of these other guys that we're gonna get to, but I like him as a pick. You know, he can just kind of feels sort of like Eovaldi and like what to expect out of him, except obviously, you know, better bill of health.
Hopefully. Boston, let's open it up to all the Boston guys for you, Brendan. Brian Bayos here. Cutter Crawford is getting a lot of love in the fantasy community. So either of those two guys really stand out to you, and anybody else further down in the Boston depth chart that's standing out?
So as a Red Sox fan, we are sneaky possibly going to become a really good pitching development team with the recent hires of Craig Breslow, Andrew Bailey, Justin Willard. Breslow's working with Kyle Bodie, who's like the Driveline baseball founder. So I'm excited about the Red Sox pitching development moving forward, but I still want to see something more. I still want to see, I would rather, we talked about this last episode, like I'd rather Bayo show me one more level from him, and then I'll be happy to draft him next year, sort of thing, as opposed to betting on it before I see it. I still like been spending a lot of time on park factors, just like staring at those Savant pages the past year, and Fenway is a lot closer to Coors. Like Coors gets treated as this is the scariest park, but Cincinnati and Boston are kind of right there. So I'm a little bit more worried about Fenway for these guys than I think. This is account Red Sox Stats, who's a great follow for Red Sox coverage. And he said, like, if Cutter Crawford was on the Mariners, everyone would be going nuts for him. And like, I thought about it, and it's absolutely true, because he does some of that stuff that the Seattle pitchers really excel at. But just the fact that it's in Boston, you know, it is the tougher park and everything. Yeah, I don't feel good enough about either of them on a season long basis, especially Crawford, to really hold up and be the impact arm you need.
I don't take those guys in best ball much, but I loved Bayo and Dailies more so as somebody that like I would avoid, because like I respected him as a pitcher, but like he wasn't like striking out a lot of guys, but like just wasn't giving up a lot of runs and like really kept offenses muted. So I just knew when Bayo was on the slate, like I was like, all right, I'm going to avoid the team that's pitching that's facing him, because I like this game, and that's how I would like get to him. But for best ball, unfortunately, not my forte.
All right. Gavin Williams. Anybody high on Gavin Williams?
I was going to say the gap between him and Bybee interests me, because Gavin Williams has, if you're someone who likes to look at Stuff Plus and that sort of thing, like he pops a lot more than Bybee does, and it's a strong foundation of a really good fastball, and that's something that a lot of smart people, when they talk about pitching, say is what you want to build the arsenal with. And so it seems like he's a tweak away, and if there's an organization we're going to believe in, it should be the Guardians. So I do like Gavin Williams. Like Gavin Williams next to Braxton Garrett, like I'm taking Gavin Williams there every single time. I
have 13% Gavin Williams. He's one of my like often picks at this range. I like him as a prospect. Like has a pretty good fastball, and I just really trust the Guardians too and their ability to just like pump out pitching. So I think Gavin Williams is a pretty damn safe bet at this range with kind of a sneaky fun ceiling, but I don't want to get too ahead of myself.
Speaking of people with a high ceiling of home runs given up, Lance Lynn is next. Brendan, you've been tweeting. You've been trying to hide your tweets, but I know you're not trying to actually hide the tweets. Is maybe Lance Lynn, can he still score well in this format specifically?
Yeah, he's like a grosser version of Charlie Morton, where it's older, you know the innings are there, but it just leaves such a bad taste in your mouth. And I actually like it was the kind of the beginning of the off season around like Christmas or something. Like I had a tweet about how I still like Lance Lynn for this format, and I was just having fun with it. And then the more time that went on, like this range he's in is again like Gavin Williams next to Lance Lynn. Like that's Gavin Williams 10 times out of 10. Bryce Miller next, like going after Lance Lynn, and then we'll get to like I still haven't, got my favorite late round pitchers. We haven't got to there yet, but there's just no need to take Lance Lynn when you can take those, because like Bryce Miller is not, or I know we'll get to him, but like Gavin Williams, those guys have rotation spots. Their balloon is filled up. We used that analogy last episode. It's like, it's not like, oh, Gavin Williams is only going to give me 100 innings because Guardians, like he's young, but the Guardians, like he's had some big workloads in past years. So it's not really that much riskier to take him than it is to take Lance Lynn.
Yeah. Yusei Kikuchi is next. As you can see, he has been a riser since we last went. There's been a lot of positive hype on him. He's someone who I've always been a fan of. It was a little short brim hat, and I don't know. For whatever reason, when he first came over, I was a big fan of him, even though it took him a few years to develop. And I think like at this price, even the 184, like I'm very happy. His balloon's all the way inflated, and he should have a spot. And he seems to have figured out most of the troubles that he's had when he first came over.
Yeah, Brennan, are you able to like throw any cold water on Kikuchi? Because like I take him so much right now. I really like the park that he's in. I like his strikeout upside. He feels like a little bit of a hidden gem back here. You think I'm getting a little too ahead of myself with that?
No, I think that's okay. Again, it just comes down to your preference. Like I'm just like overly into like Bryce Miller and some of these others. So I do probably pass over Kikuchi more than I should, but I do roster him in a dynasty league, and he's an important part of my rotation there. So I have a lot of respect for his body of work.
All right. Well, you keep saying Bryce Miller, but we have one more to get to before we get to him. But we'll put Mackenzie Gore together with Josiah Gray, and also if anybody has any deep Washington starters that they think are worthwhile. Mackenzie Gore had a huge walk and home run problem last year, but he still has strikeouts if he could figure that out, and he's still young enough that like a post hype sleeper type of candidate.
I like to call him an XFIP darling just because of the home run to fly ball ratio that like XFIP just like will give you so much like grace for. I like Mackenzie Gore just because I liked him when he was on the Padres or in the Padres system. So like guys like him, there's the acronym, like, there's no such thing as a pitching prospect, and you shouldn't get too tied down to certain guys, but like I'm leaving the light on for Mackenzie Gore in a big way. Like I saw enough starts out of him last season, where there's a lot of bad, but the good I thought was really good. And I can just see him like really putting together, maybe not a full body of work for a full season, but I could see him having a really nice season if some of this like batted ball luck goes his way.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I just look at is the team, and that's just gonna make it tough. But he's definitely similar to Detmers, honestly. Like I don't think this guy's gonna be out of the league, anytime soon. He seems like he knows he's got enough in him to stick around in a rotation.
Yeah, he's. I don't take a lot of them, but he's the only Washington guy I'll take, and it doesn't sound like anybody else wants to talk about anybody else. But let's get into it. Let's get to Seattle. We got two guys that have somehow similar ADPs, despite maybe it feels like the hype is a little bit more for Bryce Miller and compared to Brian Wu. Brendan, you've been trying to get to him, so I'll let you just take the floor here.
I was going to say, it's interesting. If you had told me in like June of last year that Gavin Williams, Bryce Miller, Brian Wu, Taj Bradley, all these young guys would be going as late as they are, I would say, oh, there's absolutely no hype for them. That means they failed. And, Bryce Miller, he came out, it was absolutely electric right away. I remember watching his first start and it felt like, hitters literally couldn't touch his fastball. And, what happened is over time, hitters kind of figured it out a little bit, and he was so reliant on it, but he was mixing it up a little bit more in the second half. And this offseason is talk about him working on a splitter, and it's really dangerous to get too carried away with every pitcher who's working on a pitch in the offseason. But there's a big difference also between a pitcher like Bryce Miller, who's working on this at one of these pitching labs all offseason, versus, oh, I showed up to spring training and I threw a few splitters in a bullpen session. I'm going to test it out. Like, those two things are really different. And with Bryce Miller, if you think about his fastball, it just comes in from an interesting angle, and it just lives at the top of the zone, and it's really hard to hit there. So what's the perfect complement to that? It does, make a little bit of sense that the splitter would help with that. Even if it doesn't, I think you're buying his floor here. So kind of similar to Gavin Williams, he just feels like a great, Bryce Miller. Is his floor any worse than these guys we talked about, Lance Lynn and some others? I would say no. And there's just so much upside on top of it, which just kind of makes it a no-brainer at this point in the draft. He's another one of these guys who has, a pretty good walk rate too.
Yeah, I'll never forget when the mid-season best ball contest was going on, and Bryce Miller came onto the scene, and he was going top 100. It was, the steam for Bryce Miller was out of control. And if you were to tell me, hey, we've been, thousands of drafts have taken place, and Bryce Miller is, still sitting close to 200, I'd be like, you're crazy. Like what's going on? So, just trying to remember how stellar he was in that debut, and the team that he pitches on is a big deal too. I like a lot of these Seattle guys. I met at the field on Bryce Miller right now. But yeah, the upside is there. And like you said, the floor too is really, really solid.
It seems like, I don't know, in the research that I've done, Brian Moo is more of a guy that there's still some concern whether he's a starter or a bullpen arm based on his movement and his pitching style. But what Seattle has done essentially is cleared the way for both of these guys to be part of the rotation if they can handle it.
Yeah, and I don't have it in front of me exactly, but when I made that little chart of the year two pitchers and their inning totals from the past 3 years to get an idea of what their, possible workload is for this season, Woo's is a lot shakier than Miller. So that's why I kind of lean towards Miller, but just on talent alone, they're both really good. And similar to pitching in Cleveland, it's a great environment, both the park and the resources they have from the team to help make them better.
I'm going to skip Marcus Stroman because he's Marcus Stroman. I don't know. You can take him or you can't. He might get enough starts to make something, but what's he going to make out of him? I don't know. Kyle Harrison is a prospect that I don't really know anything about, but the Giants are going to need innings out of him. Anybody have any deep Kyle Harrison statistics?
I'm growing really bullish on Kyle Harrison. A couple things that have me really excited about him is I was really shocked that his Underdog season-long projection for pick'ems was as high as it was. I think it's 149, close to 150, which I was oh wow, okay. So because I didn't think that this guy was gonna. It depends on how many innings he throws, but he's definitely above 9K per 9 guy. And what I really like about him too is that he has his fastball is his calling card. At least from what I'm familiar with. And that to me, my brain says, okay, if this fastball is a calling card, that can get hit really hard, but he's playing in San Francisco. So he kind of gets that benefit of the doubt, hopefully, of being in that home park when he is in the home park, of, getting some of that batted ball luck with that fastball that he has. So I've been really piling up the Kyle Harrison shares on Underdog.
I think you're going to really love him in dailies when you can pick and choose not just the starts that you use him for, but really capture that single game upside, because he has, like you said, the fastball, and that's really enough with him to, on any given start, he could have a 7 inning, 10 strikeout, really dominant start. Yeah, it's like a season long workload thing with him. The control is a little bit shakier, and that's why I again gravitate towards a Bryce Miller. But there's going to be some starts where if you don't have any Kyle Harrison, you feel a lot of FOMO. Like that's for sure. He had some at the end of last year.
I know I skipped Marcus Stroman, but I have basically a different Marcus Stroman that I take a lot of in Seth Lugo. I don't know. It's probably a mistake, but I've been piling him up. I just think he's going to be just a boring starter that gets a lot of starts for Kansas City.
I have no problem with it. I kind of put like him and like Kyle Gibson in like the same bucket of just like guys that are gonna give you some quality, that can give you quality starts, give you some dubs. Lugo had some nice starts for San Diego last season, and Kansas City is sort of like a similar dimensions when it comes to that park. So I don't hate the Seth Lugo call.
Yeah, I'd just say that his arm has a lot less on it than Kyle Gibson has.
Yeah.
When we're talking about
For your benefit.
career workloads. All right, so next up, let's dig into Tampa Bay Rays, or the Tampa Bay Rays. We have 4 guys all here in this last round. We have Ryan Pepio, Taj Bradley, Shane Baz, Aaron Savale. I'll just start out. Nobody should be drafting Shane Baz. We don't even know when he's going to start pitching this year. So just like, I'm surprised people are still taking him, but you can see since the news has come out that people are realizing how his schedule right now, he has fallen. I guess, so the order is Pepio is going, and then Bradley is going, and then Savale is going a little bit later. So Brendan, if you had to rank those 3 for who you think is going to be the Tampa Bay Rays guy that you need this year, which one is it?
For this format, it's a clear Savali for me. I'm not playing with on a season long basis where I can't make waiver moves or sub these guys in and out. And when all the scoring, it's not even like, oh, well, the ratios will help you, because that's not how the scoring works here. It's like, if Taj Bradley's never going to be allowed to pitch in the 6th inning and you're just capping all that quality startup side, it's just not for me. Even if he works out on a per inning basis or a per start basis, it's not going to hit in Underdog's format. And really the only one I would trust of this group to do that is Savali. And it's so funny because I think when he got traded last year, I remember going back at one point in the offseason to look at, oh yeah, how did he do with Tampa and what did they change? And it wasn't anything like crazy. And if he had gone on a really good run, I think there would have been a lot of steam for him this offseason, because we all would have said, oh my God, Tampa. But sometimes getting traded mid-season's a little bit tough on both the player and the team. And now they've had a whole offseason together. This is the Zach Eflin bet from last year, and I'm probably overcompensating because I feel silly for not making as much as I did last year, and I'm making up for it now. And I'm Savali at the beginning when Underdog contest first came out for this offseason. He was my favorite late round pitcher by far. So I loaded up a lot in him early, and I've therefore backed off just to diversify a bit. But he is an awesome late round pick here, and I'm really not considering the others.
Yeah, Savale, I think has just like everything you said, just like rings true for me. With Pepio, I saw someone call out his his luck stats, like the base level of like BABIP and left on base. Pepio, and I mean he only threw 42 innings last season, but he had a 189 BABIP. Like that's obviously it's hard to glean anything from that small sample, just given that context, with like a 99.2% left on base percentage. I mean, you can't really make anything of what he did, but it is the Rays. And, if somebody wants to say, hey, it's the Rays and they turn it, they've got the Midas touch, like I won't fault you, but it's not the way that I'm trying to play best ball is bet on these guys. I'd rather take other guys.
I keep getting suckered into the Todd Bradley stuff plus numbers. That basically 5 different above average pitches. Like he should be good, right? I know, he wasn't last year in his limited action in the majors, but I keep taking that click just occasionally, just because I keep remembering that number. Let's talk about Max Scherzer here. Max Scherzer and Jacob deGrom's here. I'm out on both. I think I'm not. Maybe I should be in on Max, but if I'm in on Walker Buehler, but man,
the timeline is way on. There's a big difference in the timeline between them two, and you just like can't do it. Like even I think even deGrom is like early August timeline, but it's so far out that could change drastically one way or the other. And it's one of those things like, oh, maybe I'll be sneaky and I'll get deGrom when no one else in the playoffs has him, but it's just it's just like threading an insane needle. If there's going to be a time to do it, it will be the in-season contest and it'll be clear. But for the full season, that's not it.
Yep, no, thank you there. Even though like the timelines for both of these guys say they'll come back mid-season, but what are they going to be like if they do come back? What are their workloads going to be like? No, thank you.
All right, Andrew Abbott. I'll just call it some names. Andrew Abbott, Dean Kramer. Let's see.
I just want to mention, if it's okay, quickly, Manoah, because I have a buddy who loves Underdog and is texting me like all the time about his baseball teams and everything. And he was saying that he was loading up on Manoah. He just thinks this guy is, and this has been like for a couple months sort of thing. And I told him, I was like, I don't have any Manoah. Like I just don't see it. Like he was such a hothead last year. Like, and then you get to camp and it's like, oh my God, Manoah's in great shape. And we know that means nothing, but it still felt like, man, maybe it is different for this guy. And then he has that start today and he got 5 outs and hit 3 batters and the velocity was just so. And it's just like, it's so funny how a one spring start can do that. But he's someone who I feel like a lot of people get tempted. Oh, this late in the draft, who cares? Let me just take Manoah. But it's after today's start, it makes it an even tougher click.
I just can't believe last season, we were kind of debating between him or Gossman, like in the same spots of drafts. And boy, did he trick us. Oh my God. I mean, nothing redeemable about that. Like I wish the best for the guy, but he needs a change of scenery. No question. There's no future for him. I mean, that's rough to say after one spring training start, but you don't just have the season you just had and then have this spring training start and like call it nothing. Like you just don't. Like he's got the yips. He's got something. Like he needs a change of scenery.
All right. Our change of scenery. There's 2 names I know, Brendan, you talked about. You messaged me beforehand that you made sure that we wanted to hit. They're here similar together. One of them has been driving up an ADP a bit. Nestor Cortez.
I would have guessed it was Sanchez, but with Nestor, he was this is someone who is just mispriced. Like think of all the names we just got through, and then some of the others that we skipped over just because they were that boring. Like Dean Kramer, you didn't even get mentioned, and Nestor Cortez is going like 5 pitchers after you, and that is just so fundamentally just like wrong based on a lot of factors. I think Nestor, there was this whole like, even when he was good, it was like, well, he's good, but is it a gimmick? And then he kind of got hurt last year and wasn't that great. And we've just completely moved on. But I would just encourage people to go back and look at Nestor's 2021 and 2022 stats, realize that last year was injury riddled, realize he's healthy now, realize he has a low whip. So he has the ability to go 6 innings and get quality starts, realize he pitches for one of the best teams in the American League and he's going to get a ton of wins. And he's just one of those, like, he's got floor, health willing, but that's true for every pitcher. But like,
right.
Nestor Cortez has a floor in terms of if he is healthy, how many innings he'll get. And then he kind of has this upside that stems from wins and quality starts more than, a full season, strikeout or ratio upside. So it's kind of like It's not the same type of upside as like Gavin Williams has, but it still exists and it's still incredibly valuable.
Yeah, I'm really shocked he goes down here. Really shocked.
The other name you had, Brendan, right below him here, but basically a 20th round late pick, Christopher Sanchez. I don't know. I don't get it. So teach me.
Yeah. I mean, I'm excited to hear about this. I saw your tweet and I'm like, maybe I should start to take Christopher Sanchez because right now I do not.
Yeah, it's a little bit Bailey Oberish. That again, I'm a broken record, but it stems from the really good walk rate. So he has the ability to go deep into starts. He was pitching out of the bullpen with Philly, and then they moved him into the rotation. So it's kind of got that Ranger Suarez. They did that with him. Seth Lugo's done a similar career path the past couple of years. He's not someone who pops in a model, so therefore, he's got all these gifts on Twitter and his name's getting out there all the time because it's primarily a changeup sinker. He's an east-west guy. The ground ball rate I just closed out of Fangraphs.
57%.
Yeah, it's a really high ground ball rate. So again, that helps him get quality starts. He did show some like single start upside where suddenly the K rate spikes. Most of the time, it's not the best K rate in the world. It's on a good team. I trust the role. He's definitely in their rotation. And so he's just, it's similar to Nestor, and it's kind of this inverse upside pick where like, I think the wins and quality start combo could be really high. And even though the strikeouts aren't crazy, I just think he can still do it within single starts. And when it happens to be a 2-start week, he can match and, a lot of early round pitchers who only have 1 start. So he's on my list of these guys to dive into even further and do an article sort of thing on him. But that was like my first look sort of thing. And he's probably the last guy here on this list who I'm even comfortable drafting as like someone who I really want to trust in a rotation.
I was definitely sleeping on his numbers. I mean, 99 innings in the regular season, and he threw some in the postseason as well. But 3.44 ERA. The peripherals match up. xFIP actually thinks that he could have been even better, and the WHIP, like you mentioned, was just around 1. So yeah, I'm about to make this guy a big part of my late round pitching now. It's just a matter of, does he hold that rotation spot? It seems like why wouldn't he? Like who is the biggest competition for him in that spot? Would it be it's Suarez and Ty Walker? I mean, yeah, it seems like he's in pretty good shape there.
Someone you do take a lot of, I know, JP Sears, Nez.
I do.
Stop it.
I do. I'm infatuated with JP Sears. I slowed up. That was like my default late round pick. But Sears did enough in the regular season for me in 172 innings that I was like, you know what? Like, give me some, we love to call guys oatmeal. Give me some oatmeal in my rotation. And one thing that lives rent free in my head is like his minor league stats being like as good as they were, that I'm like, there's no way that this guy can't put it together. But this is his age 28 season. So, what more can I possibly expect out of the dude? But I don't think that he's bad.
Yeah.
He's not good, but he's not bad. You can kind of say that about a lot of these guys, to be honest.
I think Sears is like great if it's like if it was like a deeper league and it's someone who again you need to make sure sticks in the rotation all year and has a role and everything. I questioned the upside, but I was wrong about Mitch Keller last year, and you were right. So who am I to question?
Yeah, I'm the bad team pitcher whisperer
exactly.
Over here. I do want to just real quick, just a sharp tangent. I'd be surprised if you know anything about this guy. But speaking of A's pitchers that I really like, I'm not drafting this guy. But are you familiar with Luis Medina's game, at all? Anything about Luis Medina? I'm waiting on this guy. I think he can break out, but I'm not betting on it. But I think he can.
I think he's really high stuff, really terrible command, right?
Pretty much.
Yeah, that is not my type of 20 round underdog best ball pick, but I support you in his venture, and whenever I see his name popping up this season, I'll be thinking of you.
I am seated for every Luis Medina start. He's on my TV and I'm waiting for this guy to break out. He's a lot of fun, man. Like obviously the results aren't always there and the control is wild, but when he's on, like he makes you want to bring him up on stream.
All right. We do have a Paul Skenes sitting here. Nez, I know you have in your heart the path forward for him this year, making an impact. I'll give you 2 minutes here as at the end here.
I'll try to take less than that because everybody knows like Paul Skenes, the number 1 overall pick. He's a good pitcher, and I think that if he's not like forcing the issue and like pitching his way into the majors, then something's gone wrong. And that's either 1, he's not pitching well, which would be a big problem, or 2, the Pirates are just that bad that like they can just put this kid on ice and wait till next season. But I think there is potential for this team to play their way into competitiveness and kind of like, if Skenes does his part and the lineup does their part and they're like, hey, all we're missing here is like a really good number 2 starter behind Mitch, then he comes up, and I honestly could see him like throwing 130 innings, which like is on the high end, of course, but I think that's in his range of outcomes. I don't think that I need that's like roses and sunshine. I think that's legitimately something that he can do. It's just both him doing his part, the team doing their part. And yeah, I mean, he's not like fully undrafted. I'd say he goes in like 75% of drafts. There's times in the 20th round where I'm looking for Paul Skenes and he's gone. So, he's getting drafted, which kind of ruins the edge.
Yeah. So Brendan, you said you're done after this. I've taken some John Gray. I've taken some Luis Severino as just like maybe he figures it out. Nez, I know you've got infatuation with Jack Flaherty, and we did see a good couple of innings in his first spring.
I like Flaherty, man. Him and Kenta Maeda, like these Detroit starters, I think are you can't do Kenta, really? No. What? I mean, for me, man, I think Kenta Maeda has had some pretty good stuff last season in a decent park on a projected 500 ball club. I mean, if he's healthy, I mean,
that's exactly it. He's just not a slow fastball guy that's never really like maybe I'm clouded by how the Dodgers originally handled him and didn't let him start for very long. And he's like, he had that one really great season in Minnesota. And then he's just been sort of injured since. So I'm out. I do think Jack Flaherty is interesting, and maybe the change of scenery does help him. Because he didn't really fit in St. Louis, and it seemed like there was some issues. But then again, he didn't do great in Baltimore.
I'm just kind of hoping he figures it out. I still believe in the stuff that he has. That I mean, we're not too far removed from him throwing nearly 200 innings with a sub-3 ERA in the middle of the juice ball era. So, like, I mean, the dude has had flashes, not even just flashes, like just really solid samples of really good pitching. So I'm just not ready to give up on this guy in Detroit. So, I mean, and he's free and he goes undrafted quite a bit, which I really like. So it's just a bet on him, like putting it together. And, if he can give me like a 4.2 ERA and 160 innings, like I'm happy.
Eric Fetty came over from Korea, where he won the Cy Young version there. Brendan, have you dug into Eric Fetty and the changes he did over there to make him more successful? And are you interested in him at all on the White Sox?
I haven't. I remember when he signed with the White Sox, I made a note like, okay, yeah, let me dive into everything going on there. And that was maybe in November, and the off season it's gone on. It's gone on way too fast. And every day the spring training news is crazy. So it's like, it's impossible to catch up, but no, it's a bad team. I have the floor is non-existent. It's just like if you're someone who plays different forms of fantasy, it just makes so much more sense to take your share in a league where you can cut them if it doesn't work out.
All right. Just scrolling down here. Dean Dunning is an interesting name here.
I have two names that
Okay.
I'll mention as I'm not saying this is going to happen. And if it does, I'm not even positive if it'll work out. But two guys who, just based on the limited action we've seen this spring, could rise. And if you're someone who just wants to maybe get a little bit of closing line ADP value, one was Casey Mize, who was a little bit up there. Again, these are not the bets that I want to be making all the time. But if you were telling me someone, hey, who's someone with a 240 ADP, who by opening day could be, going in the 180s, like Casey Mize had some impressive. It's going to be someone who's, changing their arsenal and is in the news and is buzzy. And I think he's an example of someone who could be that. And then the other one who is a little bit more of a veteran, but it's Cole Irvin, who's probably, I would love to see how many times he got drafted before his spring training start. And I'm not even saying that everything he showed in the spring is going to stick, but I'm saying that if that does stick, what's going to happen? He's going to get a lot of steam, and therefore everyone's going to start talking about him as a late round pick. And so if you want to try to maybe be really early on him, it's not a bad time to take a few literal last round shares.
Haven't done the Cole Irvin thing yet, but
that's just like pure. That's just like game theory, though. Like I'm not attaching my name to Cole Irvin as definitely gonna break out. But like this is he, went to Tread, and that's where Cole Reagans went. And again, that's already I'm making more of a responsible leap than I should be. But that's like I'm looking at some of the names here, like Jameson Taillon. There's nothing he could do between now and opening day that's going to make his ADP rise. So if you that, I'm thinking through it like that way.
I'll throw another one out though. Frankie Montas is one that we could see rise
big time. Just had a nice start.
Yeah, and we've seen pitchers come out of New York and succeed after they failed pretty hardcore there. Obviously some question about health, but he's a guy I do like as that flyer. Clark Schmidt or Chris Paddock for anybody?
Paddock, I mean, like I'll never forget thinking that Chris Paddock was like the second coming whenever he was on the Padres. Like watching him just get swing and miss on his high fastball, I was like, wow, this guy just shoves. And then the wheels fell off. I mean, I think he's more like in a league where you can cut him if it's like, okay, yeah, this experiment isn't working. It's a really risky pick for Underdog, but I like the bet from the Twins. I think the Twins have made some really, really smart moves, like when it comes to building their team, pitching wise, like taking that bet on Paddock, and the way that the philosophy they have for their hitters too. Sorry, it's a bit of a Twins rant. Love the Twins, and I think that they're pitching.
I got a Max Kepler shirt on right now. So.
The October, yeah. So I mean, I don't like Louis Varland low key, like also like another guy that like I'm intrigued with, but I can't take him in best ball. Like I just can't get myself to click them. But I'm keeping a very close eye on both those guys.
All right, so it feels like we've run out of names. There's some that you could take and dream about. But I don't think anybody here is going to recommend any of them at this point. So we did it. We got through all the positions. This has been super fun. I know both you guys have been a big part of all the different positions. So I feel like, as we wrap up, do you feel like this was helpful? I mean, how do you feel after we did this exercise? Kind of, we didn't really plan it. We just started doing it. So how do you guys feel at the end of this, going through each position like this?
As a drafter, it's been great. Sorry, Brendan. It's been great. Like getting to talk to you guys about the guys that you like that I'm not drafting for not necessarily any real reason other than I take guys that I like more has been really helpful in like diversifying my portfolio in a way that I think is smart. And getting on guys that like I'm missing something on that like that like I'm buying into some of these arguments. So I found this as a drafter to be really, really helpful in making my portfolio smarter.
Yeah, I think it's really important to have a understanding of the player pool because I think one thing that the underdog community is getting really good about is kind of macro philosophy and how many of each position to take, and where there could be a title if waiting on pitcher a little bit crushes again this year, then that might just be the play moving forward, and then that kind of edge could be gone, and then we're really gonna have to hone in on player takes and everything. So I think the more you can understand about the player pool and not just not thinking of it in a binary sense of this guy is either going to be a good pick or he's going to be a bad pick, but understanding the types of picks they are. It's a floor play with 75% upside versus a floor play with only 25% upside versus this guy's not going to contribute as much early in the season, but he will later in the season. And just trying to piece that together is probably what's coming next for this game. So yeah, and like you said, Nez, like getting some other perspectives is really helpful. And you guys talked about some players that I wasn't as in on, but you made some excellent points about them.
So really, just draft whoever you want at the end of the day, right?
That's the end of it, man. You gotta have fun with it. If you're not having fun, take a step back, deep breath, and make sure you're having fun. I have fun every time I draft, so that's good. We're here to have fun.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, you can follow Brendan at Too Much Tuma on Twitter. Nez is at Nez Takes. I am at D4RKSH33P_. Don't forget to subscribe to StackingDingers.com to get these right into your inbox, and check out all the other work that everybody's doing. So for Brendan and Nez and myself, happy drafting.